again another installment of Road to Prelims. See, the first thing that I want to say to all of you, right, because I know you guys personally and I've been tracking your preparation over the last few weeks. One of the most important things that I would say, and this is how I want to start, that you've actually done more than enough, right? You just told me just now, what you were saying is that there are some problem areas. See, the problem areas are going to remain, okay? And every one of us will have these sort of issues, right? Okay, this is still pending, this 1 second revision, I'm unable to get through it. See, these sort of thoughts will always be there. But remember that you've actually been putting in the effort for the last 3 to 4 months. In fact, it was April end when you began, right? Obviously, it was April end when you began. It was not completely for prelims, but that is when you had your starting point. That is when you started reading your books, cover to cover. So it has been quite a bit of, if you count the number of hours, it is actually a lot of hours. So just believe that you've actually done more than what is required for you to clear this exam, right? You've actually put in. Now, the only thing is that there will be some problematic areas. Now, we still have a lot of time to sort of fix problems, right? But the idea here is not to fix every problem. It is just to sort of prioritize what we want to have done, right? What we want to sort of complete. Because are we targeting 170, 180, right? No, we are not. We don't need that. The idea of prelims is to ensure that only around 10,000 people, a much more manageable number, is present for your mains. Okay, so 10,000 people are going to go. Okay, 4,000 to 5,000 people from general category are going to make it, right? So you have that many open seats. That is a lot. Okay, so you have done more than what is required. Okay, so even if you get 120, you're way above the cutoff. Even if you get 130, you're way above the cutoff. Even if you get 100, if you look at last year's cutoff, I believe it was around 92 for the general, and 89 for OBC, and I think it was like late 70s or something like that when it comes to EWS, and I'm not sure about the other numbers, but that is that. Okay, so for sure, you guys, given the amount of effort that you put in, the number of hours that you put in, 50 plus tests that you have done, all bittersweet memories, right? All of these things are going to be sort of useful when it comes to the D-Day, October 10th. Now, let's talk about some areas that you can still work on. See, even in the last few days, I would still suggest, this is something that a lot of people don't do. Okay, it actually goes against your conventional wisdom, right? The conventional wisdom says that last couple of months or last month and a half, newspapers are not important, right? And I'm sure that you've heard this as well. When I prepared, in fact, I did not have this quote unquote conventional wisdom. My opinion has always been that this is a kind of an exam that suits a person who is generally well read, who is generally well aware about what is happening around that person, right? What's happening around us in the world, the current issues of the day. If you're able to sort of track this, I feel you have a good chunk of extra points that you can score compared to the others. And here, see, if you see this here, you can eliminate options if not solve the entire questions. And you will see what I mean by this thing, right? One of the things that Megha just told me right now is the importance of current affairs and how much to focus on current affairs. Have I done too much current affairs? I don't feel comfortable with current affairs. See, all of these things, depending, you'll have all of these things on your spectrum, right? Each student, some might be like very good at current affairs, some might be not so great, some might have struggled with current affairs, especially in subsequent revisions. What I'm given to understand is that most of you are following that vision, current affair magazines, right? Monthly magazines. Some of you are also doing PT365. Some of you are also doing some other ones, Learning Space. Some of you are sort of using something else to supplement it. Some of you are doing only economy from some. So whatever it is, you have your own, right? If you look at the previous sessions, we've talked about the need for sort of circling down what is your syllabus, what is it, what is your source for it. And if you've done that, now take a look at this. Okay, eliminating options if not solve the entire question. Look at this. If most people say that last 45 days are not going to be important, see, they have a point. You will not have some kind of a question in which it'll be something along the lines of so-and-so technology that has been recently in the news is regarding what? Okay, it is some blockchain related, some financial transactions, option A. Option B, it is something to do with medical diagnostics. Okay, option C, it is something to do with cyber security. Things of this nature. Obviously, if something that is a lot more recent, those are the kind of questions that you probably, you don't have to sort of read into it. Okay, so there are some parts that are not useful right now, but there will be definitely aspects that are useful. Just listen to this. This is a question, I believe, I want to say this is from last year. I think it is from last year's paper, 2020. Can somebody confirm, is it from last year? It is from last year. Okay, so look at the options here. Let's read the question. With reference to the international trade of India at present, which of the following statement is or are correct? India's merchandise exports are less than merchandise imports. Okay, meaning exports, maybe we're looking at it in terms of merchandise and services. Okay, of course, you know what is trade deficit, what is current account deficit. You must have studied those formula, right? And you probably have it already revised. It's probably the tip of your fingers. If not, it will be at the tip of your fingers by the time it is October 9th night. Okay, or for some of you it might even be early morning of October 10th. Okay, I'm not sure, okay, how you go about it, but see, merchandise exports and merchandise imports. Okay, India's imports of iron and steel, chemical fertilizer, machinery have decreased in recent years. India's exports of services are more than imports of services. See, it's something to do with this, right? This is merchandise exports, this is exports of services. India suffers from an overall trade account or current account sort of deficit. Now you might think that I have done everything that is possible for economy. I've done my vision current affairs, I've done my monthly, I've done my PT, I've done my whatever it is that your sources, right? But however, in those booklets, they may not be able to accommodate each and every sort of statement that is given here, right? And even if they do, it is probably not for the best, right? It is not going to be for the best. It becomes harder. But things like this are frequently in the news. I'll give you an example. This was an article that was there from June 20th, but this is something that has been frequently quoted again and again and again. India reports current account surplus of 0.9% in pandemic affected FY21. See, the previous year does not necessarily matter, but look at this option. India suffers from an overall trade current account deficit, account deficit, current account deficit, right? So this statement would have been true for many years, but it is not true this present year. The point I'm trying to drive here is, if you've just gone through the newspaper, for instance, this is from yesterday's news, right? India's current account balance so far, okay, so let's look at this. Current account surplus slides to 6.5 billion in Q1. So June quarter, okay, in that particular quarter, we are still at a current account surplus, right? In fact, if you read one or two articles like this, every single day you will see elements like this. So you will realize that no, current account is surplus, right? So you've easily been able to sort of break that particular question. You've taken those options and you've been able to select definitely this option is right. Okay, so that has increased your chances of getting that question correct. Okay, in fact, it means one more thing. Okay, just not to for this particular topic. See, trade deficit is still negative. Current account is on a surplus. Okay, and one of the reasons they mentioned the current account is on a surplus is because the trade deficit has sort of come down. Okay, and if you've been following the news, you will probably know why that is, right? The last 1 year has been quite different compared to many years. Similarly, look at the question, West Texas Intermediate. If you look at the commodities page or something like that, if you look at that, the last, but I think the third last page, fourth last page, economy, you'll generally see West is Intermediate, you will see Brent. After this question is asked, every single booklet will cover it. But before they ask this in UPSC, these kind of questions might have been, googly for some, but I don't think it must be googly for people, because if you've read the newspaper even for like a month straight, you will probably be able to tell. Even for a week, you'll be better off. Similarly, see MPLADs, right? Everybody said that this is a question that was not necessarily covered much in these booklets. The booklets cannot cover each and everything, but this was a very, very simple sort of a question. Okay, and this was there in the news straight of months. If you remember in the previous year, the lockdown, once that happened, they sort of decided to cut down on MPLAD funds and ensure that those sort of funds are being given for COVID recovery and certain things. They were debating the need for MPLAD. I remember Shasharu had said something. He had said that, see, this is something that is vital. It sort of keeps the connection between the MP and his, right? Keeps it very strong. Similarly, then I was like, oh, so MPLAD does something, impressed with that sort of reason. And then after that, somebody else from PRS, I forget his name, but he had written I think his name was Madhav. So he says legislature, his work should be so and so, debating and discussion. Okay, it should be executive's job to do this. right? So MPLAD already was sort of, confusing the legislature and executive. It is better off that MPLAD is gone, not for this COVID related reason, but throughout. So, if you have read something about this in the newspaper, it becomes much easier to be able to handle questions like this. Okay. The question in previous year, okay, Kuno Palpur Wildlife Sanctuary, every single year you will see this in your mock tests, right? But when this question was there in the paper, I think 2018, 2017, something like this, nobody knew this, right? You knew this and everybody was like, see, how can we study this? Like, now are we to follow which animal is being translocated from which one to which place, right? It becomes a lot to do it. And there are a lot of people who are probably trying to do that as well. But however, for a person who is reading newspaper quite often, is that this is something that has been in the news quite a bit. Indian Mitha, it was in Hindu, this is something that you would hear. In fact, in very early podcast also, I had remembered hearing about this, probably because, I'm interested in environment and wildlife. So maybe, my knowledge was there. So I did not find that very difficult. Similarly, many of these things, there are many examples, but I don't want to go through it. So recently I'm not reading the Hindu, and because this is an impromptu sort of a session that we just had, I read business news, right? I need business news. So in this, if you take a look at this is from the very first page. Look at this. They talk about IIP. Okay, cement, coal, gas. See, in IIP, you must have studied there are 8 core sectors that make up. I remember during my time when I was studying, it was around 38%. Ever since then, if you notice here, it is around 40%. It's not too different. Okay, the weight of items included in the index of industrial production, right? So these things do not have to be like crazy theory that you have to memorize. Recall it. Recalling takes time in the exam, right? So these things are much easier. Okay, and generally your paper revolves around many of these sort of aspects. So coming back to the very first point that I made, for a person who's constantly, even if for a little bit, every single day, being aware of what is happening around them, they have a very good chance of eliminating many options, okay, compared to somebody who has only memorized booklets, right? Because the reasoning is stronger for persons who read newspaper. The reasoning is stronger for people who read newspaper. So you get to eliminate a lot of options. Okay, so for instance, some of this, because the example that I've taken from today's newspaper, from business newspaper, you can apply this to economy. If you're already doing well in economy, not so much. Okay, it may not be as useful to you. But from what I understand, economy had around 21 questions in the previous year. In 2020, 21 questions. A lot of it required you to be able to eliminate options and then finally, circle down the answer. If you do this, you have a much better chances. You have a much better chance of being able to get those. And I'm sure you can do it, even if it is like 4 or 5 days ke liye read karo, understand what is there in the newspaper. Look at this. Okay, in this one, this was an article. It was something about SEBI, right? But it also talked about something called front running. Okay, and what is front running? Buying and selling shares before or after recommending them to public. Okay, in the front page you see something like this. So there could be a question, front running, that is generally something that we see in the news. Relates to what? Again, it might be something that is like gambling, betting. Something might be about the stock market, something might be full of other options, and they might give it to you. Just by cursory reading, you will probably be able to as I said, eliminating the options becomes much easier. GST, see, GST must have been a question that you've been tested in not 1 or 2 tests, but in multiple tests, right? The point of doing these tests is that once you're done with a couple of MCQs on GST, you should feel like any question on GST, 80% of the questions on GST, I should be able to get it right. There are some questions you may not, and it's not that difficult to sort of frame those questions, but UPSC does not frame those kind of questions. It is not about the legalities. It is not about the clause by clause. It is generally like a macro perspective of GST, right? When states make some comments about the thing, just see what exactly it is, right? So for instance, Kerala and Tamil Nadu, what are they saying? See, for instance, most of the states say that they're losing money. You're not able to see this. Okay, the state government collects around 17 rupees a liter on diesel, while the center takes away around 31. If I just ask you, what does the state collect here, and what is the center collect here? Are you guys aware? I mean, because I don't want to quiz you and sort of. Are you guys aware of this? On petrol pricing, I'll give you a couple of options. Let's see. Excise duty. Okay. and second one is sales tax or value added tax. Excise duty, sales tax, or value added tax. Now, who collects what? Now, all of these things, it requires 2 to 3 days, 4 days, 5 days of newspaper, and then you realize this is the same thing that you're reading, so you become a lot more comfortable with it. Okay, you become a lot more comfortable with it. So excise duty, obviously you would know, it is a center. Okay, sales tax and value added tax from the state. So so things of that nature. Okay, in fact, again, they also talk about the fact that the direct tax and the indirect tax, the ratio has been sort of changing over the years, right? It is changing over the years. Just think about it, like direct tax, which one is progressive? Okay, which one hurts people more, right? Which one is considered to be regressive, in other words, right? Think about that. And is that trend sort of good, right? All of these things in a few days. Similarly, look at this. In this one particular article, you realize, if you've been reading about these topics, you'll realize that basmati rice is an important component when it comes to agricultural exports. Okay, it is an important component. Now think about this. In most of those articles, they will quote something called the APEDA, okay, Agriculture and Processed Food Products Export Development Authority. Now, if they say what is the umbrella sort of ministry that this thing comes under, okay, I'll give you some options. Okay, Agri Ministry. Okay, let us say Agri. Okay, Ministry of Agriculture. Okay, export develop food products, export development. Okay, Ministry of Food Processing. Okay, probably you're going to say that it's one of these things. But what if I say Ministry of Commerce and Industry? To cut a long story short, okay, it is Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Think about the export. But all it takes is that you look at this once. Okay, you read an article once, and you'll probably be able to understand this. So as I was saying, there are some articles that are useful and some articles not so useful. Generally, editorials and your opinion pieces might be a little too much information. Okay, it is things that will probably help you a lot more when it comes to your mains. Okay, but however, even so, for instance, even in this sort of editorial, when I was reading this thing, I tend to be a little more of active sort of learner, so I have to underline things so that I understand. I'm paying attention to what I'm reading. Just take a look at this. So it basically says about this year's monsoon. June had a little more in excess. Okay, the next couple of months, July and August, had a little less. Okay, and September made up for. So all of that came in the last couple of days. You were getting this sort of news. In fact, in the last entire 2 weeks, you've been reading about what will it be, the monsoon levels. See, monsoon levels have been talked about here. So the long-term, long period average, which is 1961 to 2010, last 50 years, 88 centimeters for this monsoon. And then you have an amount for your northeast monsoons. They talk about northeast monsoons, those possibilities as well. But not just that. Apart from that, what happens to agriculture here? Okay, which are the ones that you think that, there's going to be surplus production? See, surpluses, which are the ones that we still feel like the output is going to be subpar. For instance, oil seeds. I believe there was a question on oil seeds even last year. Oil seeds are constantly in the news, right? So the point being, the moral of the story, okay, let's just summarize this thing. See, reading newspapers, being strong in current affairs helps you a lot. Okay, and it has become more and more important. Okay, if you look at the pattern from the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, it is not very static kind of questions that are being quizzed. Okay, you have to be good. Static questions are easy questions. Okay, you've got to be able to ace those. But apart from that as well, there is a certain chunk that requires you to have reasoning. You have to. It is not those kind of questions where you know it or you don't. Okay, it's those kind of questions that you can reason through in the examination hall using your peripheral knowledge and awareness by reading these sort of articles. Okay, for just like 2-3 days you will know. Okay, the perspective that you get is for 3 days. If you read this thing, you come back to me and tell me, that will be a lot different sort of perspective that you get than by reading these booklets. It'll help you for sure. So through this thing, at least around 10 questions, okay, 10 options minimum 10 options you'll be able to eliminate just by reading the newspaper every single day from today all the way till your exam, even if it is for 20 minutes. Okay, 20 minutes is not much, right? You just try to see, okay, this could be important, this may not be important. Okay, if they're talking about UNFCCC, okay, what exactly are they trying to say? What has been in the news for the last couple of weeks? So these sort of elements will help you quite a bit. If there is something about climate financing, invariably you will see $100 billion. Okay, and this has been there for the last 5-6 years. Every time there is an article about this $100 billion that has been decided in which COP, Okay, where exactly was that COP? You will know this. Okay, you will see these articles. You will see these articles every single day. You don't have to memorize these things. Okay, it will give you a lot of benefit. At least 10 options you will eliminate. And by eliminating options, even if you don't get those things right, your chances of getting that question right has just been increased. We hope that you found this video to be useful. For any further guidance, please feel free to reach out to us. You'll find the details given below in the description. And finally, don't forget to subscribe. Also click on the bell icon for further notifications as well. If you found this video to be useful towards your preparation, if it added value to your preparation, please give it a like and also share it with your friends. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.